Hello again, I'm Don Smith, and I'm here to tell another story from my book, Aeromorphosis. I call this story Prank Over the Bermuda Triangle. There are more stories like this one in my book, Aeromorphosis, which is available on Amazon. This incident occurs over the Bermuda Triangle, but first some background into the relationships that pilots have with each other. In a fighter squadron, there are typically 25 pilots and 25 aircraft. The pilots are like family to each other, and the aircraft are their pets. The squadron commander acts as a father figure, and all those in between have their role, down to the newest, barely qualified lieutenant. They work together, play together, deploy together, and sometimes mourn together. From the mostly boring morning briefings, formation flights, training missions, the sometimes excoriating mission debriefings, and happy hour brawls, they mostly live together, like it or not. They know who is a trusted flight leader, who struggles on the refueling boom, and from whom to seek advice. They know each aircraft, its quirks, its reliability, and remember good or bad missions in each one. In airline flying, the interaction among pilots takes on an entirely different character. The major airlines typically have thousands of pilots and perhaps several hundred at a base. At a large base, a pilot will seldom fly with someone they know well or even at all. Social interactions outside of work are rare. Since the pilots are well trained and proficient, pre-flight briefings cover only essentials, and post-flight debriefings are virtually non-existent. Like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates, you never know what you will get. Tyrant, humanitarian, ornithologist, geologist, military reserve general, survivalist, artist, master pilot, and occasionally an incompetent. I have flown with them all. They were all interesting in their own way, but some were more pleasant company than others. As a co-pilot, I dreaded the micromanaging captain. There are many different techniques in flying that comply with procedures, but are subtly different. The captains who insisted that their co-pilots use their exact methods were certainly entitled to do so, but I always suspected them of being afraid of being caught outside of their level of abilities or embarrassed by being confronted with a better technique. The sincerest form of flattery that I ever experienced, either as a student or a teacher, involved a fellow pilot trying and then adopting a technique used by their counterpart. As a captain, I was very aware of the mayhem that an incompetent or intentionally malicious co-pilot could create. My briefings to co-pilot. When it's your leg, it's your leg. You may conduct the flight as you see fit. I will be here to observe and assist. If I see you doing something different than I would have done it, I will observe and maybe learn. If I see you doing something that is concerning, we will discuss it. If we can't come to an agreement, I will win. The first YouTube story that I posted took place over the Atlantic on the route from Bimini to Wilmington. That reminded me of another incident that happened in that area. Although known as a Bermuda Triangle, the only unusual events that I know of were entirely explainable. I'll read a story out of the book now. The perpetrators of the following tale swore it was true. I wasn't there. Captain X made everyone in his crew miserable. His constant nitpicking and complaining wore very thin after a few days. That part I can vouch for, because I had a difficult time getting along with him also. During a night flight between New York and Miami, the routing called for a leg between Wilmington and Bimini over the Atlantic along Atlantic Route 7. Captain X dozed off during that leg. The calculating co-pilot changed the compasses from slaved to the direct gyro, enabling him to slew the compasses to indicate a heading of due east, while they were actually on course, heading south. Next, he instructed the engineer to push and hold the fuel gauge test button until the gauges read nearly zero. With that indication, he pulled the fuel gauge circuit breaker, rendering the fuel gauges stuck at a very low level. And one more thing he did that I forgot to mention in the book, he tuned the navigation radios to a off frequency so that the navigation displays appeared to have no signal being received, indicating that they were far away from the transmitter, like in the middle of the Atlantic. He then quietly called one of the flight attendants, requesting that she call the cockpit in a few minutes. Instructing the engineer to feign sleep, he also pretended to be asleep. When the call came from the cabin, it woke Captain X. Arousing, he found what he thought was two sleeping crewmen, an aircraft heading for Europe, and an aircraft with little or no fuel. According to the accounts of his reaction vary, but suffice it to say, he was extremely upset. The moral of this story, be nice to your co-pilot. Hope you enjoyed the story. I plan to post more stories from the book and some from the blog, which is on the website. Please check aeromorphosis.com for more stories and information. Thanks for your time.